Welcome back to Chapter 2. We're going to create a material first for these three meshes that we have. Right-click, Material, name it MAT_1, double-click, and the first thing we're going to do, hold down the 3 key, and then left-click. This is going to be our base color, and let's give it 0.9, white. Okay. And then now hold the 1 key and left click. Put that in the specular. We're going to give it 1 for specular. And then hold down 1 again, left click. Let's give it 0.3 for roughness. Now we're going to do 3 again. And this one we're going to convert to parameter. Let's name it emit color. And then hold the 1 key, left click, also parameter, name it emit amount. Now these names do matter because we need to reference this in the blueprints later down the line, where we will dynamically modify it during runtime. Okay, now to end it, we're going to do a multiply node. Okay, and pipe this in here, and this into the emissive color. And click save. Let's let it compile. And okay, now go back to main level and go all into these meshes and assign the mat1 that we created and repeat the steps for every single one of them. Okay, now you should have these 3 meshes with the new mat1 assigned to them. Let's take these 2 meshes over here called base, LR, and top and bottom, TB. We're going to populate the scene now. So first of all, drag in the left and right and zero everything out. Now, okay, so we have mobility settings. Because we're doing ray tracing and dynamic lighting, we have to set the meshes to movable. Don't worry about what stationary or static means for now. It is, again, out of the scope of this course. And let's position in the X, the first one, 1050. And then click here in the world outliner, Control W. We're going to zero the Y out. And then the X, we're going to do minus 1050. Okay, and then take the TB, base TV, drag it in, zero everything out. And in the Y, I believe it is 750. Again, movable here. And then Control W to duplicate, zero this out here, and then do minus 750. Obviously, everything is pitch black right now because we have no lighting. So what we want to do is to import an HDRI, any kind of EXR that you have. Go to content, let's create a new folder. Let's name it _text for textures. And in the texture folder, we're going to drag and drop an HDRI. It'll take some time. Once it's loaded, double click. And by default, there's some compression going on. So in the MIPGen settings, do no mipmaps. It'll take some time again. Okay, now it is in full resolution. So save that, close it out, and go to lights and do a skylight here. We're just gonna zero everything out first. And the cube map resolution, I'm gonna do 512 for now. And in the source type, select specified cube map and select your HDRI. Okay, so now we're gonna decrease the intensity to 0.5. And of course, as I've mentioned before, you need to set the mobility to movable because we're having ray tracing and dynamic lighting. So everything should be orange in the world outliner. And now we need to get a camera. So do that, cinematic and cinema camera actor. Now let's zero everything out. I think we're going to do 1100 in Z. And then we're going to rotate minus 90 in the X, minus 90 in the Y. And for the settings here, it might be closed for you. Let's go to film back. I personally chose a sensor size of 32 and 20. These don't have to be realistic because it's digital. And focal length to 18 millimeters. Just crank the focal, f-stop, sorry, to 1.2. We need to do focus settings. So first of all, we're going to pilot the camera. And the focus distance is incorrect. It's going to be 1100 as identical to Z. You can check that it is correct here. As you can see, it is in the right place. Let's set it back to 1100. Turn off draw debug focus plane. And that's pretty much set up for our scene. The issue that we have now is that when you click play, as you can see, the camera gets messed up. And the reason why is because we haven't specified the blueprint to use the specific camera actor that we created. And in order to do that, go to Blueprints, Open Level Blueprint. And first we're going to create Get Player Controller. Now again, don't worry about what this means, out of the scope of this course. Now, if you have the camera selected in the world outliner, you can right click, create a reference to Cinema Camera Actor. Okay, now we're going to drag off of the player controller and we're going to type set target, view target with blend. Now connect that into event begin play, which essentially fires as soon as you click play or when the game runs. Don't forget to click here and connect the camera to the new view target. Click compile and save and go back to the main level, click play. Now it should stay exactly as is. Why don't we start programming the blueprints for the individual cube that will then later be spawned within this frame. Now I'm going to go to the blueprints folder and create a new folder called _game mode and store these two blueprints away because we won't be using it for the rest of this course. And finally, we're going to right click, create a blueprint class, an actor, and then name BP cube. Now double click to open it. And let's just close out the game mode, the material, and okay, save it first. And the main level blueprint. Let's first add in a scene component and drop this scene on top of the default scene root. And it'll get rid of the sprite. And let's rename this root. And under the root, we're going to put a static mesh. Let's name it cube. And in the static mesh here, select the cube mesh. Go to the event graph. You can get rid of two of these nodes, events, because we won't be using it for now. And the first thing we want to do is to grab the cube, the reference to the cube, drag out of the cube, and create a dynamic material instance. Connect that up. And set the source material to mat1. And here we're going to right click, promote to variable. We're going to name it mat1. This is essentially the reference. We're saving the address in memory of this material instance. Now, what is a dynamic material instance? Why do we need to use it? Well, in Unreal, if you don't create a dynamic material instance, essentially you cannot make modifications or changes during runtime. Okay, from now on things are going to get a little bit more complex. And the first thing we want to do is to create a custom event. And we're going to name it pop. Now this we will trigger in a different blueprint at some point. The first thing that we're going to create is called a timeline. Let's name this anim for animation and change this pin to play from start. And essentially what this is like a keyframe generator. So double click this and check use last keyframe. And I'm going to set the length of the animation to 1.5 seconds. And we're going to create a float track. And I'm going to name this alpha because this is going to be a normalized, 0 to 1 value, which we can use to scale the Z animation and the emission animation. So hold on to Shift and click to create points like this. And the exact keyframes, if you want to copy, is 0, 0. And then the second one is going to be 0.35 in time, and the value will be 1. And at the end is going to be a minus 0.1, and the time is going to be 1.3. And then the last keyframe is going to be at 1.5 seconds and at 0. Of course, this is a linear animation, which we don't want. So select everything here and right click, click auto. And we're going to also click flatten. So essentially, this is kind of a bobbing animation. It goes up, comes down, and then it also goes below the 0 and then comes up. Actually, we're going to flip this up so it goes up immediately. And this is it for the animation. Go to event graph, and you can see that an output pin has been created for the alpha float track that we created. And in the next chapter, we're going to start linking this up with the location of the cube and the dynamic material to control the emission.